Today we're going to be continuing on our journey drawing through the alphabet. So far we've done letters A through D, and next up is E, naturally. Let's get right into it. Starting with a blank canvas, the first thing I wanted to figure out was the location. There were surprisingly not too many places I could think of that start with the letter E. After thinking for a bit, my mind kind of just went towards elevator, which I thought was not that interesting unless you're Captain America.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
But unfortunately, I am not Captain America, so I decided to go with something completely else altogether. I ended up with Eatery, which is basically just a restaurant, but the difference is that it starts with the letter E, so it's perfectly viable for this video. As you can see from this canvas, I finally decided to utilize perspective lines since this is an interior drawing shot, and I also went through a few iterations before coming to the conclusion that 2-point perspectives were a bit out of my reach. I shouldn't be too greedy, so I decided 1 point was all I needed. You know, there's beauty in moderation and whatnot. Doing these perspective lines and the outline was super peaceful, and I was really digging this whole process. But once I landed on a nice little design of the restaurant, eatery, it was time to bring in some customers. For the movie portion of this letter E drawing, I decided to go with Emperor's New Groove and have Kuzco and Pacha sitting down to enjoy a nice meal. This movie was my childhood, and probably the first movie I've seen that featured the enemies to buddy storyline. No, that's not true, there's Toy Story. But of course, now that we have our customers, we need some servers. And who else but Ed, and Eddy. After all, this is going to be their eatery. Saving up all those quarters finally amounted to something. Despite their goofy and cartoony style, I struggled pretty hard with getting these characters to look somewhat decent. But anyways, I drew Ed behind the counter looking pretty, while Eddy gets some FaceTime as he takes orders from customers that don't exist yet. Then I thought it might be fun to have Double D coming out from the kitchen holding a giant jawbreaker to serve. Ed, and Eddy don't look too good if I'm being perfectly honest, at least in this sketching layer, but I didn't worry too much about it and moved on to the next category, which is video games. There were surprisingly not too many games out there that start with the letter E, at least ones that I've played and ones that'll be good for this drawing kind of challenge. I ended up going with Enter the Gungeon, which I played on release way back in 2016, which, man, that was like 9 years ago, that's crazy. I thought this game was really fun, but I mainly chose this property for the aesthetic. The characters, most notably the Bullet, were such cute designs, and having them sit in a booth together, trying to get some food was such a cute concept that I couldn't just pass it up. These characters, again, are real cute, and I can't help admire them, while we have Lee here miring Eddy in the adjacent booth. Now that we got our main characters, I guess plus Lee in this drawing, it was time to add in other characters to fill out some empty spaces. I added Kronk and his squirrel in the same booth as Kuzco and Pacha. Yzma, obviously not invited, is sitting on the next booth enjoying a burger. At least I hope she's enjoying it. It did feel weird to have Lee sit by herself, and I thought about adding another one of her half-sisters, but when I think of Ed, and Eddy, besides the main trio, I kind of just remember Plank, so here's Plank. This whole outline process took a pretty decent amount of time, but I'm super happy that I took my time with it because I thought it was looking pretty solid so far. Speaking of so far, if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and subscribe as that'll help this channel a lot. Anyways, let's get back into it. It was inking time and I felt a bit overwhelmed. I didn't know exactly where to start, so I decided to take it one step at a time. First, I was going to focus on the characters only and slowly make my way through the entire canvas. After cleaning up the design of Ed, and Eddy, I'm really happy with how they turned out. I wasn't really feeling how I drew them in the sketch, but at this time, I just couldn't help but love it. Kuzco and Pacha were also fun to draw, and after making Pacha bigger, they were finally starting to resemble their movie counterparts. Well, for the most part. I still couldn't really figure out Kuzco's face completely, but don't look too closely. I didn't even start inking the background just yet, but even just removing the rough sketch, I thought this looked so good, and I'm honestly just so happy. I should have started using perspective lines ages ago. Now it was time to bite the bullet. Not that one, but it was time to go ink the rest of the background, and I didn't want to use the straight line tool too much at this stage because I really wanted that hand-drawn feel to the drawing since, the show really excelled at that look, and I really wanted just imperfect lines. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't that excited to do this drawing initially since I thought it really wouldn't turn out well, and I really didn't think it would turn out well during the 2-point perspective, portion of the video. But looking at this inking layer, I'm really glad I stuck through with this idea, and I just really love how it's turning out. I did the background, finished the posters, the window, the vending machine, and I also added a soda machine in the back to kind of remove some of the empty space occupying the middle of the screen. It was time to color, and I stuck with the same strategy as I did the inking. Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to stick with the characters first and foremost and work my way through the rest of the canvas. Once all the characters were done, I added a beige-ish color to the rest of the environment as a base. Then I just plopped random colors here and there onto the rest of the canvas. And yeah, base colors are fine and all, but now everything was looking like how my games used to look like back in the day when I rocked a laptop with integrated graphics and had to turn shadows off to run anything at a miserable frame rate, and honestly I have no idea how I got through gaming back then. Wait, what was I talking about? But yeah, it was time for one of the more fun parts for me, and that's the shading. I wanted to keep the shadows in 1 or 2 tones mainly to keep this cartoony look, and I'm so glad I did. And honestly, shadows only look so good when there's light balancing it out, and we're gonna have 2 main light sources for this picture. One from this iridescent light bulb in the ceiling, and another from this window, which I also did add a basic tree and some, minor reflections to kind of make it resemble more of a window. But yeah, after that was done, my main concern came from this vending machine. I didn't really know how exactly to do this properly, but after many different attempts, I'm like really happy with the result. I think adding the little, streaks for the reflection kind of helped add the whole vending machine-ness to it all, and I just really love how it turned out. But that's enough gushing about this vending machine. It was at this time when I showed this to my fiance, and well, I don't want to brag, but she was going on and on about how I was such a great artist and, super handsome, and just that, she was just really proud of me. Okay, well, she didn't actually say any of that, but that's what I like to imagine she was thinking when she saw my drawing. What she did say was she felt the chairs could have been a different color to kind of make them pop more and fit with the drawing a bit better. So I gave her the color picker tool and she kind of chose, these colors, and I think it does look a lot better. Then I worked on adding the lighting and the highlights, and I struggled a little bit with getting the sun rays from the window, but after a couple of tries and utilizing the airbrush tool and the soft eraser, I finally got a look that I was pretty happy with. We just have poor Bullet over here getting blinded by the sun. Guess Ed, and Eddy were too cheap to buy some blinds. This drawing was coming along nicely, and all that was left to do was to work on these minor pieces. I added some marks to the floor along with, a minor reflection. I added Krabby Patty colors to the burger, and I put our owners on the posters on the wall. Then I added some random lines to break from the blandness of the tables, and I was mostly done. My fiance mentioned at this point in time that it would look better if the tables had some napkins and like ketchup and stuff like that spread around, and that made me realize I completely forgot to add some of that from my sketch in the very beginning. Luckily, this didn't seem like it would be too hard to do, so I just added it really quickly. And here we finally have Ed, and Eddy's eatery. This drawing was super fun, and honestly it was probably the most fun one that I've done so far in this video challenge. It was probably the first time where I felt super confident with what I was drawing from like the sketching layer onward, and that was kind of a weird feeling. Using perspective lines in the beginning was a bit annoying because I thought it would be super boring, but I actually ended up really loving the whole process, and yeah, it was just awesome seeing kind of the drawing come together from like these lines. I looked at my previous drawings as well from this challenge, and I also realized that most of them kind of took place in some dark environments, so I really wanted to make sure this one was nice and bright and colorful, and I think I succeeded successfully. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please check out other videos from this series, and also check out my other video series where I turn Avatar into a comic. That one was also just super fun to do, and I'm really excited to draw some more for that series, but yeah. Please leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and most importantly, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.